Welcome to Gateway's Open Office Hours. I'm your host, Carter Laren. My filling in for my normal co-host and co-founder, Ben Larson. Today we have Brandon David from Investing in Cannabis. Welcome, Brandon.
What's up, Carter? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Yeah,
absolutely.
I should start by apologizing to Ben. The lighting's probably horrible. You probably don't like the camera angles. You're probably like, I think he's on a plane to New York right now. He's probably watching helplessly at 30,000 feet. So
they have Wi-Fi on that plane, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he liked the stream on Facebook, so he's watching, and he's just really angry right now.
I'll try to do you justice, buddy. I'll try to do you justice.
So we love you, Ben. It's just not the same without you. I don't even know what camera to look at because that's how sophisticated we are.
There's a lot of cameras.
Yeah. So, you know, we normally answer founder questions and stuff. I've got a couple topics that came up this week that people asked about, and I know you said you had a few topics that people asked you about.
A couple people reached out. Yeah, a couple people reached out.
So I guess you could technically try and reach out during the show live on Twitter, but I don't know that anyone will do that. We don't have enough Twitter followers.
I mean, you can reach out to us if you want to text.
I'm not even checking.
Whatever.
I guess I could try and check.
I got my phone.
I'll look. Cool. I have my computer here so that I could check theoretically. Anyway, one of the questions that was asked to me was actually someone asked about signing an NDA. They actually wanted us to sign an NDA. Great guy, actually. We like him. You know, he may actually end up being part of cohort 2. Mm-hmm. But first time founder and tech guy. And you know, I come from the tech world, and before I was in startups, I was working for large companies, and an NDA would be the thing that you would do before you spoke about anything semi-proprietary.
Yep.
And I had to explain to him that actually, you know, people don't sign NDAs for startups, especially investors. Mm-hmm. I guess instead of just answering the question myself, like, do you have thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I wouldn't say no NDAs ever. I just think it depends what stage you're at, right? So if this is a first email, right, or you're sending your deck and expecting someone to sign an NDA, that's outrageous, right?
Right.
But if you are deep in due diligence and for whatever reason somebody's lawyer think this is a good plan, you pay lawyers lots of money for their advice. Right. It's not the end of the world, but it is a bad signal in the beginning, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, I would say what you're describing could happen perhaps for me. By the way, that's Amtrak, our sponsor, in the background. I would say that for like Series A, or and you know, the likelihood that an NDA becomes okay increases with the stage.
Yes.
Right. So you know, as an angel investor, I would never have signed an NDA with anyone ever.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're getting a little bit more into deep due diligence on like a later stage company, perhaps. But the reason for that is super important, and I don't think founders understand. When you're a seed stage investor or even a Series A or Series B investor, you see so many deals that you can't even, half the time you can't even keep them straight in your head. You're not in the business of A, stealing people's ideas, or B, like transmitting ideas from one person to another. Right. It's not like, oh, you know, Brandon told me about this thing yesterday, so I'm going to tell Eric tomorrow, and so Eric can steal his idea because I like Eric better. Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think you could say it even more broadly, is that ideas are everywhere. And when you see deal flow, you see the same ideas come up over and over again.
Yes.
Early stage companies are about execution. Right?
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the principle here, is that like ideas actually don't matter.
They don't matter.
Stage, right?
Yeah.
Your idea's not special.
I mean, they do matter, but you know,
your idea's not special. That's the
go.
thing. It's not. You know, you probably think that you're the only person, and there's probably within, you know, if you're in Silicon Valley, within a 5-mile radius, there's 10 other people working on the same idea.
Yep. Very interesting anecdote about OnFleet, right? So I do sales for OnFleet during the day, and I constantly get demo requests from someone in South Africa that says, we're going to do alcohol delivery. And it's like, this is some crazy novelty, right? And then I get on the phone and they're like, have you ever heard of anyone else doing that? And I'm like, yeah, it makes up maybe like 10% of our customer base, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like just baffled that this wasn't their ingenious idea, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it can't be very successful in South Africa and they'll
absolutely
be the person to do it and make a lot of money, but it's about execution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, the thing that I think first-time founders don't understand is how much it's about execution and how little the idea itself is valued in a vacuum. The idea is only important when it's paired with a team that's going to execute.
And maybe the best example of this is how quickly early stage founders pivot their idea.
True. Right? Yeah. I mean, we've had some in Gateway that like pivoted.
It must not have been that golden, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think the other exception I gave this guy is when you're talking to a large company. So if let's say you're building a software product, and instead of pitching, Gil Pinchina, right, you're pitching Microsoft for some reason. Might want an NDA, right? Because a large company that's not really normally in the business of investing, they're just in the business of executing.
Yeah, if Samsung comes knocking, you might want to ask a lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But when it's me, I couldn't steal your idea if I wanted to.
Right. And hopefully you have so much domain expertise in that area that you're trying to start a company that no one else could do it.
Yeah.
Right? You're the only person that could execute on it.
The other thing I think that's important, though, is for people to understand from the investor perspective why they won't sign an NDA, right? And that is it just puts them at undue risk. Because you see so many deals and because so many ideas are overlapping or identical, if you're signing NDAs with everyone, you basically have the ability to just get sued for everything all the time, because anyone that you turn down and say, I don't want to invest in you, they may find someone else that you've invested in that later that has a similar idea, and they'll accuse you of stealing it and seeing it like whatever. Absolutely. And that doesn't happen. If it does happen ever, those people are outed pretty quickly and vilified and kind of cease to exist, I think, mostly in the investment community.
And
so
if you are any kind of reputable investor, you have a lot more to lose than the early stage founder that's approaching you, right?
Absolutely.
A lot more.
Yes,
a lot more. Yeah. It's a really interesting note about NDAs in general is sort of like, why ever? Right?
Yeah, they're not super enforceable either, generally.
Right,
but
yeah.
Yes.
So and the language is never particularly clear and never very specific. Everybody sends kind of the boilerplate NDA,
right. Yeah.
And then if that were to get in front of a judge, right? I mean, who knows what they could do?
Yeah, there's not a lot of cases of NDAs actually being enforced that I can remember, and certainly not in these kind of situations. So, my advice, and it sounds like Brandon's advice to early stage founders, is it's a bad signal if you're coming into an angel meeting and saying, sign an NDA to see my deck.
It lowers my interest drastically.
Yeah,
it's a red flag. It's someone telling me my idea really isn't that good. This isn't really that good of a plan, but I'm kind of going to make it seem like it is by making you jump through hoops and preventing you from getting to it. Right?
Yeah.
And it also could be a ploy to just get more time with that investor.
Right.
Because now they've said, okay, well, I've gone through the NDA, I got the rest of my team.
But that's actually one of the reasons not to do it as an investor, also because you're busy. And it's like, if everyone wanted to do an NDA, you'd have to spend lawyer fees every time. Like, hey, John, my lawyer, like, can you look at this? Okay, great.
I think the best pitches, particularly cold pitches, are a short email with a link. And you have to click on that link. You get an email, somebody says, please check out my shit. You're going to click the link, right?
That's how the Nigerians make so much money in fishing. You have to click on the link. So can we acknowledge that the light filter just fell off?
You got kind of shiny.
Yeah, I mean, we're ghetto. I think we should just go with it.
Just embrace that.
I taped the light filter to the light over there, and it's now fallen off. So
whoever makes that blue tape should get a tweet.
We should probably actually not use blue tape. So, all right, let's move on to the next. Do you want to move on to one of your questions before we
Absolutely.
hit the next one?
Absolutely. So, I had a founder reach out recently. Brilliant technical mind, full stack engineer. He started a company. He's in the early throes of it. He has another partner that's a little less of an engineer, more like kind of a sysadmin, like does the shit he doesn't want to do, right?
Sure.
But they're making a B2B product, and they have no sales experience of any kind.
Common,
right? And so he says, what do we do? How do we go about distributing this to the world? And he was smart enough to realize that he needed to start the process as early as possible.
Yep.
Because customer development is so key there, right? He's got to know how to develop his product further. And the only way to know that is to learn from customers. So he did know that. But to be honest, he's just sort of frightened, it sounded like.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not his skill set. And so what do? Well, you got to be prepared to fail a lot. I think is the first case, right? And that's very cliche with startups, but I mean specifically every day in your little conversations, cycle. Right? In your sales cycle. Yeah. And there's a lot to be learned from when someone says no. Yeah. And hopefully they tell you why they said no. Right. And if they didn't, you better ask.
I was going to say, if you're smart enough to ask,
you better ask. Right. What do you think about early stage cycle? I mean, have you done much sales in your life like that?
I'm one of those people. I would be that founder.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, fuck, I don't know sales. Yeah. I've had to do it. Right. I'm not the best salesperson in the world, but I've had to do it because that's what you have to do. I mean, in general, when you're an early stage founder, you kind of have to be the one to do all the things first, even if you're not good at them. The cool thing, if you're an engineer and you need to do sales, it's not, we were talking about this a little bit before the show, right? It's not as much intuition as it used to be. There's you can get Pipedrive.
Yes.
And, which we love.
There's a science to
Pipedrive is one of our partners. You can get Pipedrive, and you can, you can set up stages for conversations with customers. You can assign probabilities to them. You can walk through it, and you can make sure that at each stage you're kind of figuring out where you failed when you failed.
Yep.
And you can read books about it, and there's plenty of articles about sales, and getting to know is just as important as getting to yes often, and sometimes more important. So you're not wasting your time on people who are never going to buy. There's the 3 sales questions, right? Why buy anything? Why buy now? Why buy from you? Right? Those are the things they have to be. You have to be able to answer.
Yeah.
So I think for an early stage founder, you just have to jump in and do it. And the truth is, if you understand the technology really well, you could actually turn out to be a pretty good salesperson.
Absolutely.
Because you can answer any question they have.
Yeah.
And you'll come off as really smart.
And particularly when your product is new, it's about being creative.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I create a solution for this person that fits in somehow? Do I need another third-party platform that does a couple other features that fits in? Right. I mean, you can think about it that way. You can be like a solutions architect.
It's almost like customer development, right?
Absolutely.
It's very similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The one thing I will say is once you have a little bit of money and have done some of the sales yourself, I was just talking to a VC about this the other day, and I forget who it was. They probably wouldn't want me to name drop anyway, but I forget who it was. Some relatively well-known VC, and at least from a well-known fund. And they had a founder, kind of a similar situation, but they had raised some capital, so they were a little bit further along, and it was a bunch of young guys on the team.
Yep.
And, the VC sat down with them and spoke to them about this and kind of said, okay, now you're B2B sales, you need B2B sales. This is the time to go hire the silver-haired salesperson who knows all those B2B people that you need to sell to, right? Yeah. Like, you've done a few, that's great. Now go hire the person who's sold to these people for the last 20 years.
Yep.
So, I mean, that does need to happen eventually, but early stage, you don't have the money to do that.
You certainly need salespeople at some point. Yeah. If nothing else, it's a full-time job.
Absolutely.
And you can't be doing 2 full-time jobs, right? I think the other big concern that people have about customer development or sales is that they're somehow going to be making cold calls all day.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this way, right? Yeah. In fact, they don't work at all. Particularly if you're selling software. No one wants to be told what the software is going to do for you. They need to see.
Well, think about how you respond to cold emails about stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, cold calls don't work. The cold email, I like the cold email.
I prefer the warm. I mean, I much prefer a warm email if you can get it. And
absolutely.
It's worth. We've got a guy in this cohort actually who geeks out on. I mean, I hesitate to call it stalking, but he's got a target that he wants
targeting.
Yes.
Targeting.
And he'll he's really good at spending time going online and finding everything there is about this person and finding a connection to them somehow. Mm-hmm. Both a connection psychologically, they're into this particular thing and he understands it, and also a person who can connect. And he'll work his way to someone, and that's a much better way to go about it. It takes extra time. It's a lot more difficult than just kind of send all. On an email.
Yeah, it's extra work. No
but
question.
But
that's what life's about, is the extra work, right?
Yeah.
It also can be as least salesy as necessary, right?
Right.
So you can reach out to someone. We got a little.
Yours
now I'm shining.
I'm awesome.
We're both
shining
out
here
just all day.
Can we apologize to Ben once more time?
Sorry,
Ben.
Sorry, Ben. We love you. It doesn't have to be that salesy. You can reach out and say, "Hey, I think this would work for your company. Do you have time to talk about it?" That's a real thing.
Or you can even just ask them, the sale of your software is probably based on some perceived need that you think they have, you can just say, hey, look, I'm a founder of an early stage startup. I'm trying to solve a particular problem here. I want to know, like, is this a problem for you? Let's talk about it. And like, that can be how the sale starts. And maybe you find out that your solution isn't for them, but you can kind of use that as some customer development, right?
Yeah. So that's outbound, right? If you're going to send a cold email. If you're lucky enough to have some inbound, right, and you're spending ad dollars and trying to drive conversions on your website, well, honestly, that's not sales at all. No. So you can get a long way down the pipeline and have somebody warm, somebody interested in what you do. And then the conversation is much, much different, right? And so I think that's what early stage technical founders need to realize, is that there's a formula here and that you can get very close to the end without being a salesperson, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't have to be the stereotypical used car sales guy in order to do good sales.
Yeah. Now, if you want to start a Grubhub competitor, you're going to have to call a lot of restaurant owners, right? So it is segment specific, I suppose.
That actually that reminds me of, I don't remember if Ben and I have spoken about this on air before, but like there's know what kind of business you're starting. Right, there's a lot of Grubhub made me think of it. Right, there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I really like food. I'm going to start a food delivery service."
Yep.
Like, that's not about food. That's about logistics.
Logistics.
That's what you're spending all your time on. So kind of understanding what business you're starting is important.
That's changing a little bit. The logistics space is evolving. There's
there's OnFleet to help with
there's
some
OnFleet. There's OnFleet.
Shameless plug.
And a little plug there. And aside from OnFleet, there is a big logistics industry that allows you to have things delivered. There's the Uber Rushes of the world, Postmates. Right. Like, you can do food without logistics, but but you better be really good at the food part then.
I don't know. Really I still think it's mostly logistics, even though
there's a difference in thought process, I think, in Silicon Valley about what your core competency is.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, if you want to deliver flowers, are you really good at flowers, or should you be really good at making apps?
Right. Or delivering people
flowers,
and like controlling the supply chain.
So there's definitely many schools of thought on what should be the core competency. I guess that's just like investor thesis,
Well, from the early stage, the answer is all of those. You should be great at all of those.
Yes.
Please build a team that's awesome at all of those things.
But the question is, if you can't have all of those things, what's the most important thing?
Right.
And I still think it's the domain expertise, because at the end of the day, the customer, they want it on time. They want a notification when they're getting there. They want to be able to track their driver, whatever. But they ultimately want the flowers.
Yeah,
or the food,
I would say it's really similar to that, but slightly different. I would say that it's whether you really understand the customer need and have the skills to provide that basic solution to that need, right? The basic part of that solution isn't tracking your driver or whatever it is, right? If it's flowers, if there's a particular need, a particular way in which people want flowers or need flowers in certain ways, and you really understand that and understand how to deliver that. Maybe not necessarily the logistics, and you can hire people to help on that or learn the logistics.
Really understanding is the key there, though.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many people. It's easier today to start a company than it ever has been before. If you combine AWS and, you don't have to you don't need that much money anymore. Nope. But the downside of that's a great thing, right? That there's more creativity, more entrepreneurship in the world. That's the way the world moves forward.
Sure.
That's where progress comes from.
Yeah.
The downside of that, though, I think, is that because it's so easy, you have a lot of people starting businesses that they have no business starting, right? They just say, I like X. Well, I'm going to start an X company.
Right.
And that's just not the way it works, right? It's just not the way it works.
You're making me wonder if the failure rate's going to go up as a result of just more.
I think it has.
Has it?
Yeah. Well, it depends what you mean by failure rate. I mean, are we talking about failures of people that ever think, hey, I'm going to start a company or make business cards, or companies that had some traction and got a little bit of money, or at least got farther in the investor conversation? Obviously, that's a lot lower number than total companies.
I would just call it as like companies that were incorporated and then fizzled out somehow. Right?
Okay, incorporated. Yeah. It's really high.
I think it is.
It's really high.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always heard 90+%, which is a very general term.
Yeah, but I think it's higher than
that. I think it is.
Yeah.
And also, when you start defining what success means,
Right.
Right. What does that mean? Does that mean you have a small business perpetually?
You can pay your bills and
pay your
be
bills.
Happy, or?
Right. Yeah. Does it mean that you return a return to your investors? What does success mean? And then the numbers get even smaller.
Yes, they
right?
do.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if success means building $1 billion company, the numbers are infinitesimally small. I can't even say that word
either.
Yeah, I can usually say it, but
I tried to say caricature last night. Caricature.
You have a problem with that one?
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
but I learned aluminum. I learned. You got to stop calling it pot.
I'm kidding.
Syntax matters. Okay, so speaking of success,
yes,
I got another question from another founder.
Okay,
desperate for exposure in the world. He thinks what he has created is brilliant, but he needs to be out there. He got a cold email. Speaking of cold emails, from a conference producer.
Yep.
The dreaded conference producer, saying, "Congratulations."
Don't say that.
Congratulations. You've been selected as one of 15 companies to present on our massive stage in front of 300,000 people. Scroll to the bottom. It costs $5,000.
Right. Congratulations. You've been selected to pay us $5,000.
Yes. Lucky you. Yeah. Lucky you.
Yeah.
Is that ever worth it?
I mean, if it sounds like an email scam from Nigeria, it's probably not a good use of business funds.
Yep.
I mean, look. First of all, if you're building your startup correctly, you've turned yourself into a domain expert. You're writing articles. You're having conversations. You're out there, and people want you to speak for free, or maybe even pay you. Right? They want to hear what you've had to say. So it's a red flag. I mean, look, honestly, quite obviously, if it's pay $5,000 to speak, you haven't been selected, right?
Correct.
It's like they need $5,000.
Yes.
So
that's a hoodwink
wipe
situation.
The flattery off of stop being flattered about that, right? And then you have to make a marketing decision, and I think generally it's a bad idea to pay to speak. A couple of reasons. One is conferences that basically take sponsorship money and all their speakers are just people who paid, tends to have shitty content.
Yes.
And so the people that go there kind of know that, and it's like, yeah, it's this like masturbatory session of a bunch of people who've paid to be there and like no one actually getting any value out of the
So
conference.
Specifically, if we're talking about a pitch competition, if they're asking
never
you
pay
to
pitch.
pay,
Never
right,
ever pay to
yeah,
pitch.
if they're asking you to pay, like think about the quality of the other people pitching there.
Right.
Be real with yourself.
Well, and think about the investor that would go to that.
Right. Yes.
Right? Like, if
correct.
you're a decent investor, you have deal flow.
Yes.
And if someone's like, hey, we found these 20 companies who are willing to pay $5,000 a piece to pitch on stage. Do you want to see them? I mean, the answer is probably no.
No.
Like, why? Like, I want to see the companies that people are begging to invest in.
The question that I would have, too, is, okay, so if they have money for that, why do they need my money?
Right,
sounds like they're good.
Yeah, why are they paying $5,000 to pitch or whatever it is?
Now, this is separate from a strategic sponsorship, which we should bring up briefly, right? If the audience is a target that you want to get to and you have a specific goal, you want to get X number of signups or you want to, get X number of bank accounts opened, whatever, great. That's
a sales or marketing decision.
Yes.
Right? That's not I get a chance to like get investment.
But I think when you're the early stage founder and it's all up to you, these lines get blurred.
They do get blurred.
All
and
you
it is
hear
tempting,
is,
right?
Hey, there's going to be a big crowd that's going to listen to what I'm saying. And that's like, sometimes there's a desperation mode there.
Yeah,
but don't do it. Don't do it. There's camera.
No, I don't know which camera we're supposed to say. Don't do it into it. Don't do it. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the thing is, it's tough to be an early stage founder, partly because you feel like no one's listening to you and like no one gives a shit about what you're doing. And there's a reason the emails are crafted that way. There's a little bit of flattery.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, think about how that $5,000 could be spent, right? What are the things you could do with that? Could you, make a big improvement to your app? Could you go and spend it getting more traction?
Ad dollars.
What could
would
you
be a
doing
much
with that
better
money?
use.
It depends on the business, right? But like, there could be a lot of much better uses for that. And
maybe it gives you an extra month of runway.
Yeah, right. Maybe, yeah, exactly. You pay rent and eat ramen for another couple months or whatever. Like, great.
Yeah.
So I think, when you get to be a later stage company, I don't even understand how they make marketing decisions. Maybe $5,000 to talk in front of people is worth it. I tend to doubt it, but whatever.
So I think this is the way
when
it
you're
works
early, no way.
in big tech companies. They say, we've got to allocate X% to marketing because that's what someone told us to do. An advisor told us to do this. And now it's someone's job specifically to allocate that $20,000.
Right.
So it's sort of like when you raise a fund, right? Well, you
have to spend it.
Yeah, you have to spend it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, I had a nice call with Brandon. He seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's give him $5K.
He
We'll
said
go.
I was selected to go on.
Yeah, the whole team will go.
Yeah.
It'll be great. It'll be bonding. You know, you get lulled into this sort of...
We'll have some video and pictures for management to show that we were on stage and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can do like sponsor like a cool after party, right? And it's like aligns with our brand really well. Right. But hey, nobody feels bad for the big companies that put out a little bit of budget. I don't know.
Right. And to them, I mean, it's such a small percent of their budget. Maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's just like brand awareness.
Honestly, I'm not qualified to tell them.
I'm not either. That's why I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, neither one of us are qualified, for example, to say whether Coca-Cola should spend $5 million on a particular thing. Like, I don't know. They seem to be doing well at, maintaining their brand, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, this is a question that I always have. And it's sort of a stupid question, but I have it nonetheless. Is like, okay, if you are Kleenex, do you need to advertise? I know there's that brand awareness for the next generation, but everyone calls it Kleenex. They call tissues Kleenex.
Yeah.
Like, is there a big need there? I don't know. I'd like to ask somebody.
I don't know. I mean, I imagine there's a whole like maintaining your brand strategy people that deal with huge brands that are already established.
Or like new markets, right? Like you're always trying to get the next, but
sure, or maintain, right? Kind of prevent, we were talking about Chobani yogurt the other day because one of our mentors basically built that brand from scratch, and there was already Yoplait and other stuff. Like someone didn't protect their brand very well and let a new entrant come in and take a huge chunk of the market. Like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Right?
Maybe there's going to be like some luxury hemp tissues.
Who knows?
In the future, right? And
we all need better.
We're
Kleenex.
going to pay $5 a Kleenex, not a Kleenex, a hemp tissue.
We'll call it Kleenex still, and that will be the failure of Kleenex, I think.
But I guess this has happened to Xerox, right? Because Xerox for so long was like Xerox, synonymous with make a copy.
Right.
But now people make copies with all kinds of devices, right? So I guess
Xerox even in the business of I don't think they're even in the business anymore, are they? Maybe.
They got to make copy machines still.
I don't think they do.
Really? Like the big industrial office?
Okay, we're probably not supposed to do this live.
Check it out.
Hold on, I'm going to go over to... I'm using Brave. I like the browser to plug for Brave for no reason.
Okay.
Xerox copiers.
I'm just going to check my social media while you're doing
that. There's Xerox office printers. There are. So, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they must have big, long-standing enterprise contracts. Right, like we're going to replace your Xerox forever for $10,000 a month or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I just assumed that they would just stop that because
it's not profitable.
Maybe it's profitable. Who knows? We are not. We're not later stage experts, so I'm not going to try and tell Xerox what to do.
Not in the least.
So let's do another question. Alicia's giving me the warning that we're close to 30 minutes, but we don't have to stop at 30 minutes. Fuck 30 minutes.
It's supposed to be 30 minutes?
Well, Ben likes it to be 30 minutes, but guess what? Ben, you're not here today.
I thought it was an hour.
It can be however long we want. And you could just sit on that plane and squirm, be really angry.
You got another good question from somebody, though, I think.
Well, I got a question that's relevant. It's like, they basically ask, how do I get into an accelerator?
Yeah.
Like, what are the things I need to do to prep to get into an accelerator?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't actually call that a good question, but but I'm going to answer it anyway.
Shut down.
So here's the reason. I mean, it depends on the accelerator, which is a shitty answer, but most accelerators, I mean, go to our website. We have information about what we want.
Yes.
It's probably different than 500 startups or Techstars, and they probably have information on their website too.
Yes.
So, to that extent, asking a question like that is or even what do I need? Someone was asking me what do I need to get into a hardware accelerator? I'm like, I think it depends on the hardware accelerator. Right? Yes, obviously you need hardware, but so my general answer though, and I want to see if you agree with this. My general answer is, it's kind of similar to what you need to get early stage investment.
Exactly. My advice would be, don't try to get into an accelerator.
Good.
Create a comprehensive investment campaign in which you test all channels.
Yep.
Whether that be your parents, your angel investor friend, an early stage fund, whatever that means, all across the board. Accelerators, incubators, there's no difference, by the way. Right. But yeah,
I'm not even sure what we are.
You know, YC is a hell of a process. They bring you in for a couple-minute interview. That's like the gold standard, right? You have like 3 minutes to impress them. I think the verticalized incubators, accelerators are a little more specific. If you want to be in a hardware accelerator, well, there's probably a lot of metrics that you would have needed to hit. You know, are your molds done or your designs done? Right. I mean, I don't run a hardware accelerator, but yeah, it's very specific. Right. But I would not ever, it's cliche, but put all your eggs in one basket, you know?
No, absolutely not.
The point is to get enough money to continue your company. Where that comes from is a little less.
Yeah, I think I would say that there is a caveat with incubators / accelerators and verticals, because sometimes the hardware one is actually the one that's coming to mind. I mean, we could make this case for Gateway, but like that's actually not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about the hardware question where, you know, design for manufacturing is difficult. Getting something manufactured overseas may be difficult, and navigating that is a skill that would be helpful to have. And so if you can partner with people who can help you with all that, you know, there's a reason why there are vertical accelerators.
So
right?
I think the vertical ones, the biggest value actually is that it brings together a lot of people that are thinking about that subject.
And have expertise already in that subject. Right, yeah.
So, you know, if you're in a new field, and we can use cannabis as an example, right? We were here last night. We had a little event. It was very nice with a bunch of people that were specifically interested in cannabis, right? Now, if you go to a tech meetup in the city, the odds that there are a couple people there that are interested in technology and cannabis, maybe, right? So in that way, you have created a lot of value in being all in one roof, and it also puts people in the right mindset when they come here. Like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Maybe I should read a couple articles before we get there about recent shit that's going on, whatever. So I think in that way there is value.
Yeah, no, and I think, you know, even just getting back to the hardware stuff or Gateway, frankly, you know, if you're looking for particular connections that you don't have, or you want to, I mean, there's a reason they're called accelerators, right? If you need help to like bring in expertise in areas and like quickly bring you up to speed, or maybe get that thing manufactured or get that connection with the factory in Shenzhen or whatever that you want, I can see value there. But my answer to the question remains like, it's basically the same that you would need to get investment, because an accelerator is investing in you, often with cash, but also with time and resources and energy, which translates to cash.
Yeah.
So you're still asking someone to give you something for equity in your company. So it's very similar.
I think, to put it a little more broadly, you should be the expert in whatever you're building, whatever your area is. And so it really shouldn't matter what question someone or an application throws at you. You should know more than everyone.
Yes.
So who cares if they ask you to make a video or write an essay or send, you know, demonstrate your product? Who cares?
Right.
You should be the expert.
Absolutely.
And when you are that, you are that. And it doesn't matter who's asking. You're going to have a good answer. Right?
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I think when we've talked about fundraising before, and I've given a talk on this, but I have a little pseudocode that basically says, like, if your knowledge is less than the VC's knowledge, you die. Right? Like,
correct.
That's how it goes. So.
Because the VC is looking at hundreds of deals across many, many verticals. Some VCs don't have any segmentation at all.
Right.
They look at everything. So how could they be as knowledgeable as you are about the only company you think about all the time?
Yeah, and no, I mean that, but it's surprising, just having been an angel investor for a while and now doing an accelerator. It's surprising how many times someone comes in for an interview or for a discussion or whatever, and you know, within 30 seconds you can get to questions that they don't know the answer to that you know the answer to, right? Because you Googled before the meeting, right? It's like, you know, I spent 5 minutes Googling some shit, and I ask like, oh, who else is in this space? Oh, there's no one else competing. I'm like, really? Because I just Googled, and like on page 1, there's 5 other people doing
so embarrassing.
Like, that kind of shit happens all the time.
And then they try to tell you about the one minute feature that makes them different.
Right.
And I'm like, that actually might be the crucial, like, key feature. But by you sort of hoodwinking me to begin with by saying there's no competitors, I'm now no longer interested.
I don't believe you. Yeah.
Right? Set up the landscape. Tell me why you're going to beat everybody.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty simple, really.
So, I don't know. Should we wrap it up, or Alicia wants to wrap it up?
We're getting the wrap signal.
She's wanting us to wrap it up. Well, I wanted to talk about other stuff, but I guess we'll save it for another
Nobody
time.
wraps up my show. I wrap up my show.
Yeah, I'm not actually in charge here at all. So I guess we can wrap it up. Let's remind people to vote for the Gateway South by Southwest panel.
Very cool.
It's not a Gateway panel; it's a cannabis panel.
Yeah.
I think, Alicia, is that like on the screen somewhere? Probably. There's a link. I don't even. It's like xxsw.gtwi.co.
Should have put that in your notes, maybe.
Yeah, I should have. I have this computer here, and all it says is Mike Rothenberg, which we didn't get to talk about.
So the one quote from that said it all. I read the TechCrunch article.
Oh yeah,
it said that Mike wanted to be famous.
Yeah,
and being famous is not part of early stage investing.
No,
it's not.
No.
And as soon as I read that, I was like, well. Enough said.
Well, he got his wish.
He got his wish. He sure did. He sure did.
On that note, thank you all for watching the Gateway Office Hours, and I think Ben's out again next week. So I don't know who's my co-host next week. I don't know if Brandon's coming back or not, but we miss you, Ben. Have a good flight to New York. Thank you, Alicia, for the production, and we will see you all next time.
See you guys.